This video is live now. Oh, I see us. We're up. We're live. Hey, everyone.
We're live.
How is it going out there? We are going live with the amazing Anthony Doherty from Doherty, Foltz Immigration. Most of you probably already know me. I'm Dane from Moving to Canada. I'm on our content team. I handle a lot of the immigration news and updates. And we are here today to talk to you about COVID-19 and the changes and impacts that's having on Canadian immigration. So thanks for joining us, Anthony.
Thanks for having me, Dane. How you doing?
I'm doing relatively well, all things considered. I'm hanging out in my apartment. I think we're on week 6 of stay-at-home orders
I've
in Montreal.
completely lost track of which week it is, but I'll take your word for it. Week 6.
I think but every day just feels kind of like the same day on repeat. I feel like we're living a Groundhog Day sort of paradigm now.
I was about to say that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, look, for those of you who are tuning in, we're going to be answering some of your questions about COVID-19, how that's impacting immigration. We got a ton of questions in our Facebook event. I think we had about 80. So we know you guys have a lot of questions that you want answered. We're going to do our best to answer those. But we are going to wait just a couple of minutes for people to join, just so those of you who are looking to get your questions answered have that opportunity. This is the first time that we're doing this sort of live stream with 2 video feeds as well. So forgive us if there are any technical issues. We're sort of learning, trying to adapt to the remote world, as I'm sure all of you are as well. I've got a dog in my apartment who she might bark during this. I feel like
I'm just praying my 2 children don't barge down the door. So there we go. We're all in this together.
we are all in this together. That is true. Yeah, so a little bit of introductions here. In this live stream, I'm going to be handling a lot of the information about recent updates to Canadian immigration policy, immigration news. That's my main job here at Moving to Canada. So I spend a lot of time following those IRCC updates to Express Entry, to IEC, to various programs. Anthony is a Canadian immigration consultant regulated with the ICCRC. You submit and prepare a ton of immigration applications and do a lot of consultations. Is that right?
Yes, basically we do. Obviously, we'll start off with consultations advising people on various ways to come to Canada or various issues that they're having in regards to their application. Of course, we represent on a number of applications such as Express Entry, work permits, LMIAs, family sponsorship, criminality. So we do criminal inadmissibility too. So that's just a handful of the services we provide.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to show our audience members some of those services a little bit later on, once we cover some of the immigration updates. I'm just looking at some of our comments here. I see someone is asking to see the dog. Well, we'll see. The dog she'd have to venture into my room. In the meantime, I do have a little stuffed dog back there, which is a pretty good representation of what Shiloh looks like. Yeah, and we see we're getting a lot of questions coming in already.
I noticed that the questions are pouring in.
Questions are already pouring in. So look, guys, we've got about 250 of you in here right now. So I think we're good to get started. So just to give you guys a little preview of how this agenda is going to roll, we're going to be first discussing COVID travel restrictions, so the travel ban, who cannot enter Canada right now, as well as who can enter Canada. Then we're going to cover some of the special immigration measures that are in place. And Anthony's going to take a bit of the lead on that because he's the one with the expertise preparing and submitting those applications. We're also going to be covering some of the program changes. So I see a ton of questions coming in here about express entry program changes. We're going to tell you what we know about that, as well as what we don't know. One of the things you are all going to realize during this is that there's a lot of confusion and complexity of the situation. Things are evolving incredibly quickly. So we know a lot, but we're also very willing to admit that there are things that are still up in the air right now. And then finally, we're going to end off with answering some of your guys' questions. So we've got a lot of questions that we saw come through our Facebook event, and then there are a ton of questions coming in right now. So we'll try to get to as many questions as possible. We are going to start with this overview of the changes, so hopefully a lot of you will get answers to your questions that way. But I did see... Oh, there's so many questions coming in that I can't keep up with who's asking what. It's Roni asked how to get in touch with Anthony. I actually put in the description of this video a link to the Doherty Foltz immigration website. They have an intake form. You can complete that form and book a consultation with Anthony or with his professional partner, Cassandra Foltz, who's also a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. So, you ready to jump into this, Anthony?
Let's go. Yeah, we've got a lot to cover. Hopefully we can get it all done, or try, at least attempt to get it all done.
Yeah, let us try to get through this tsunami of immigration updates. So, we're going to start with updates to Canadian travel restrictions. As of the week of March 16th, the Canadian government started announcing a ton of extremely strict travel restrictions affecting Canada. So at present, both air and land borders are restricted to the vast majority of foreign nationals. So the vast majority of people are not able to enter Canada at this time. There are a handful of exemptions to those travel restrictions. Those exemptions include Canadian citizens as well as Canadian permanent residents. So if you're a citizen or PR, you can still come into Canada. As well as immediate family members of those individuals. So immediate family members include your spouse, your partner, your dependent children, as well as parents are also on that list of immediate family members. Then we have a few of the touchier, more complex exemptions here, but they're really important to a lot of people. I see Sai Strata is just asking about COPRs. What happens if you have your COPR? So COPR holders, and that is your confirmation of permanent residence. It's a document that you receive after your permanent residence application has been approved, but before you do your formal landing in Canada. If your COPR was issued prior to March 18th, you qualify for an exemption, which means you can still travel to Canada. If your COPR was issued after March 18th, unfortunately, you cannot travel to Canada at this time, and we are going to come back and tell you what to do if your COPR is expiring and you're unable to travel to Canada. So we'll get back to that. As well, study permit holders, if you were approved before March 18th, or you had your study permit issued before March 18th, you are also eligible for an exemption. You can still travel to Canada if you were issued your study permit after March 18th. Unfortunately, you are not exempt. And temporary foreign workers. This is the one that we've been.
Yeah, this is going to be the one that's tricky.
Yeah, temporary foreign workers. So certain temporary foreign workers are exempt. And are able to enter Canada at this time. I see Jim. I'm just looking at the comments that happen to be coming in right now. Jim is asking if I try to enter with my IEC work permit, will I be able to? Possibly. If you're traveling as a worker, you have to demonstrate that you're traveling for essential purposes. And entry at this point is being granted at the discretion of the Canada Border Services Agency, so Cbsa, and Cbsa officers who man every port of entry, whether it's land or at an airport. Cbsa is going to adjudicate your request to enter Canada and determine whether or not they deem you to be essential or non-essential at this time. There's no this is really important. There's no magic formula that will guarantee you'll be able to enter Canada as a temporary foreign worker. Certain things will really help your application. Having a job offer, arranged employment in an essential industry, an essential service, that will help as well. You need to have an isolation plan, a self-isolation plan for when you arrive for the first 14 days. And we're going to talk a bit more about what that entails a little bit later on. So for all of you IEC participants out there, I'm going to answer a lot of the questions we've been having right now. A lot of IEC participants say, I have my letter of introduction. I have my POE letter. What do I need to do to ensure that I'm going to be able to enter Canada under this exemption for foreign workers? We cannot tell you there's a magic formula of documents to bring that will guarantee your entry. There is no magic formula. If you have a job offer in an essential sector, that will greatly improve your chances, but it will not guarantee your entry. It will be assessed at the discretion of the Cbsa officer with whom you speak. So you have to accept that there is a risk that you will be denied entry if you travel to Canada at this time. And there are a handful of other exemptions as well. I won't go into detail about that, but exemptions for things like air crews, diplomats, people who've received written exemptions from a consulate. And what I'll do is just show you where to get more information about this. If you head over to the Moving to Canada website, you'll see on the home page, I've placed a couple of links right here at the top. You can head over to read up more about Doherty Foltz, about what Anthony does, his consultancy, as well. You can head to our travel updates. And here you'll find all of the latest travel restrictions as well as the sources that we've used to get that information. So you'll see all of those travel restrictions here, and you'll see all of the sources, so you can go and confirm the information that we're giving you, and that's all right on the Moving to Canada homepage. Great.
Okay.
So now, Anthony, let's talk about what's going to happen if you travel to Canada right now. What do you need to bring if you are qualifying for one of these exemptions and you want to travel to Canada and try to cross the border?
Well, first of all, let's non-immigration wise, obviously don't travel to Canada if you absolutely don't need to. Obviously your health is the most important thing, and other people's health also. So if you don't need to travel and it's not completely essential, don't travel. Mm-hmm. If you need to come to Canada, so if you are on one of the exemptions, you must provide documentation. Now, the airline at the airport from wherever your departure is in. So having your visa is not good enough. You're going to have documentation to show that you meet the exemption of one of the lists that you just spoke about earlier. So if you do meet the exemption, provide your documents. That's now, I believe, is that law now?
It's mandatory. It's absolutely mandatory.
Mandatory.
Yeah.
So bring a face mask. Again, that's for your own safety too, and other people's safety. Once you get to Canada, the first thing, obviously, the most important thing is the isolation plan for me. There's very strict measures. If you don't present an isolation plan, they can refuse you entry, mm-hmm. Or they can, correct me if I'm wrong, they can send you to a designated facility for a 14-day isolation.
They launched that, I believe it was about a week and a half ago. So the Canadian government is now renting out hotels. So they'll put you in mm-hmm. an isolation hotel for your first 14 days until they approve your exit.
So isolation plan is key. That is extremely important.
Yeah. I'm going to pull open the isolation plan that you sent me earlier from BC as well, just for people who are interested. We're getting questions about what to include in your isolation plan. If you head to the BC government website and look up their isolation plan, they've got a form that has a lot of questions here. If you're coming to Canada, you can use this form to to sort of model your isolation plan off of. And I hear my dog barking in the background, so those of you hankering for the canine appearance, you may yet get your wishes granted. And what if somebody has symptoms of COVID-19, sore throat, coughing, something like that?
Well, back to my original statement. Obviously, stay where you are, self-isolate in whatever country in your own home. If you go to the airport and you are showing symptoms, you will not be permitted to board. And also, you may incur whatever policies are in that particular country where you should be at home by self-isolating. So don't leave your home if you're showing symptoms, because you won't be permitted to board the plane.
Yeah, they'll deny you boarding, just point blank. And that's even if 100%. Even if you are a Canadian citizen or a Canadian PR, if you're symptomatic, you're not going to be able to board a commercial flight at this time. And there are some other documents to bring as well, like we discussed. If you're traveling for work on a work permit, you want to bring proof of the essential nature of your position, and things like. Sorry.
No, so it'd be like a letter of employment from your employer who's providing an essential service, a job offer from an employer who's providing an essential service. So that's the kind of documents you would need to provide, as well as your work permit.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's the airline that's going to be asking you, like, first of all, for the stuff in order to allow you to board the plane.
It's the airline will ask you, but we've also heard stories. The airline will ask you, and they'll make an initial assessment, but you will then have to go through a secondary assessment once you land with the officer at the port of entry.
Of course, yes, of course. So, yeah, make sure you've got the right documentation.
Because you could do your flight over here and get denied once you land in certain circumstances.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So let's talk about a few of the Canadian immigration program updates.
Sorry, Dane. Can I just add one last thing to our? So obviously, once you've come to Canada and you've gained entry to Canada, you must self-isolate for 14 days. That is the law. And obviously if it's the law, you must basically follow your isolation plan and self-isolate for 14 days.
Yeah, and they have made that criminally prosecutable, if that's the right term. So they are fining people, and in theory can actually put you in jail if you fail to comply with that.
Exactly. Was it up to $750,000? And Another thing too. This obviously the 6-month jail time is pretty scary, but don't forget that maybe this could make you inadmissible to Canada too.
Mm-hmm.
This could negatively impact any future applications in Canada. So you have to take it extremely seriously.
Yeah, criminal inadmissibility. That's if you commit a criminal offense in Canada or in other countries that.
Exactly. Yes.
And it jeopardizes future.
So basically, it jeopardizes future. It can make you inadmissible to Canada. So you can't make an application to come to Canada as a visitor, as a permanent resident. But yeah, if you're found to be in breach of the Quarantine Act, it can make you inadmissible. Mm-hmm. So again, that's another important factor to consider.
Yeah. So we are going to talk about some program updates here, but I see a couple of common questions coming through, and I'm just going to try to address those for those of you who are looking for these answers. The first is about dates for these restrictions. How long are the travel restrictions going to be in place? I'll show you a couple of sources here. Let me see if I can find this. One of the sources, the primary sources that we refer to, are from the Government of Canada's Orders in Council. This is official. The Governor in Council issues official legal proclamations. So in this Order in Council, they go through some of the various travel restrictions, and they do have a date in here. This was issued on April 22nd, so just a couple of days ago, and it states that it's ending on May 21st. Of 2020. There is another source that a lot of people have been citing. It comes from Transport Canada. And this source states that the travel restrictions are in effect until June 30th, 2020. What we want to tell you is that these dates are extraordinarily fluid, okay?
Yes.
You cannot plan your travel on the assumption that on May 21st or on June 30th, these travel restrictions are going to be lifted. The travel restrictions, these end dates, they're almost arbitrary in nature because they're going to be reassessed based on the public health situation in Canada. So I just want to send that point home. Don't plan your travel on the basis that these restrictions will be lifted on the 21st of May or on the 30th, whichever source you've been looking at. These are going to be reassessed and redetermined later on. We cannot, and nobody in Canada at this time can tell you how long these travel restrictions are going to last, because it's going to depend on how the pandemic progresses, both nationally within Canada and globally around the world. Okay? I realize that's a non-answer to the question, but this is one of the situations where we don't have the concrete answer for you.
You don't have a crystal ball, no?
I mean, if I did, I would be doing some other things, I think. Okay. I'm going to send this question to you, Anthony. We've gotten this question a ton for people who have a travel document. So the two documents that people keep bringing up are, I have my confirmation of permanent residence and it's going to expire soon, or I have my POE letter for IEC and it's going to expire soon, and I can't travel to Canada. What do I do?
Okay, so we'll start with the COPR. So if the expiry date on your COPR is approaching, you must basically send an email through the web form, the IRCC web form, informing them obviously the reasons why, obviously that you've recently been approved for permanent residency, give your application number, fill out the relevant fields, and then give them the reasons why obviously due to COVID-19 you're unable to travel. And you can also, I suppose, you could upload a copy of your COPR as a document, to upload with your. And what will happen is IRCC will receive that, and they will put it on hold. Okay, they'll put it on pause. Now, the onus is actually on you when you're actually able to travel. Where for whatever reason you are now able to travel, you will send another web form to IRC informing them, now listen, I can now travel. The OPR will still be valid, and they will encourage you obviously to travel before the expiry date if it is to follow the instructions that they'll provide. And then the IEC POE letter, what is it, 30 days? You must...
Yeah. They released official guidelines at the end of last week stating that you can only request an extension on your POE letter once you're within 30 days of the expiry.
So, and again, basically, when you are indeed able to travel and the expiry date has passed, basically email them, or sorry, send the web form informing them that you can now travel, and again, follow the instructions.
Yeah, and what we've been seeing thus far with POE extension requests is that it takes them a long time to respond, so it will take them a long time to get back to you. They're swamped right now. But once they do get back to you, they have been issuing a 90-day extension for most people. If that 90 days is going to expire, we're recommending that people submit another extension request, depending on where the pandemic's at. Of course, we don't know. Again, don't have a crystal ball. Don't know where we'll be at 90 days from now. But IRCC has just requested that you only apply for your POE extension within 30 days because they have a lot to deal with. Right now.
Oh, they'll be swamped.
Yeah.
Do you want to add another thing, Dane, as well? If you're basically flying in from a visa exempt country, okay, and you're in whatever application you're making, temporary application you're making, where you're eligible to make it at the port of entry. They're no longer doing that at the moment. Okay, so if you were eligible to make an application for a work permit, say for instance you're from a visa exempt country and you have an LMIA, and you intended to go to the airport and apply for that, they're no longer doing it. It makes sense. They're freeing up time so they can, enforce the Quarantine Act. Obviously, they're extremely busy, and an application made at an airport is obviously very time consuming. So I just wanted to add that.
Mm-hmm. And another related question to this that we've been seeing come through a lot is regarding IEC work permits that have already been issued. So let's say hypothetically you came to Canada, activated your IEC work permit on March 1st, and then it dawned on you that a global pandemic happened 2 weeks later, and you went back to your home country. Makes sense, understandable. Can you apply to extend the validity period of that work permit? And at this time, you cannot apply to extend the validity period of your work permit unless there are a handful of situations in which you can apply for an extension, a handful of like rare exceptions, but for the vast majority of people, you will not be able to apply to extend that. It's possible. It's possible that depending on how long this goes, IRCC might introduce some sort of policy to accommodate those of you who have experienced this sort of inconvenience of having your work permits cut short. But at this time, there's been absolutely no mention of it. So unfortunately, we've only got that bad news for folks in that situation. Okay. Do you have anything else to add on that, Anthony, or you want
to? Well, we've covered. We just covered the IEC. We covered COPR and coming in on a work permit. No, I think we've covered Have we covered work permits? That was going to be the.
Yeah, I think we'll come back and we'll answer a few more specific questions at.
Of course.
At the end, the other big question, and we'll do this now just to get some of these bigger questions out of the way, is about flagpoling. So flagpoling is a procedure. Actually, Anthony, can you describe what flagpoling is?
Flagpoling is a procedure where you're currently in Canada and you were making an application which is considered an overseas application, like for instance an IEC work permit. So when that application is approved, if and when that application is approved, or any other application, you're issued a POE letter. So going to get your work permit in Canada, they're not going to mail it to you. You have and basically re-enter. So flagpoling is the process is where you go to a border, a US Canada border, and you basically leave and re-enter Canada immediately. Basically, you're immediately turning around and coming back into Canada. So no, they're not doing that at the moment.
Yeah. And
I think you.
Well, and what that means for IEC participants specifically, because a lot of IEC participants travel to Canada on like a visitor visa first for a few weeks. Maybe they try to travel or find a job or something before they actually activate their work permit and begin working. Unfortunately, there is no way for you to activate your work permit at this time. If you're inside Canada, because you cannot flagpole. If you travel to the border, people keep asking us what will happen if you go to the border. They will just turn you away, and from what we've heard, they may yell at you.
I would say so, because obviously the majority of it is non-essential travel. Okay, so we have to understand that they're dealing with they've got their priorities in dealing again with the Quarantine Act, health workers, trades and goods leaving Canada, coming into Canada. So someone showing up saying, can I activate my working holiday? They may be a little bit annoyed.
Yeah. So unfortunately, that's just the reality right now, is that there isn't an option to activate. What we have seen we've got a source who's been communicating directly with IRCC, and they are looking at this issue because they realize that it's inconvenienced a large number of people. So they're looking at ways to resolve this, but right now there is no resolution. Again, we'll keep monitoring that, and if there is an update, we'll put it right on the Moving to Canada website, of course. So let's dive into a few of the broader questions about immigration programs and what's up with Canadian immigration policy right now. So one question we get a lot of is, straight up, is Canada still processing applications for immigration?
So for express entry, yes, they 100% are. Now, obviously, this is going to slow down. People are asking about processing times. It's obviously going to slow down. And again, they have other priorities to, dealing with basically the exemption. So they are still being processed, and obviously we still know that they're doing invitations to apply. Mm-hmm. So in regards to work permit applications, again, they're prioritizing the applications. For agriculture workers, fisheries, jobs like that, they are being prioritized over, as non-essential occupations.
Right.
So the majority of applications are still, apart from obviously IEC, correct me if I'm wrong, the majority of applications are still processing, but expect lengthy delays, and
I'll pull up a quick web page here from IRCC. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit for you. So as Anthony said, most PR applications are still being processed with extraordinary delays. They've announced there will be delays, but they've paused IEC applications. As you can see here, this is on the IRCC website. They do say that no applications in process will be closed or refused due to a lack of documentation. So that's an important thing to note. But these more applications for immigration status that is more for holiday purposes, tourism, visas as well, those sorts of things are being paused for the time being. So I just saw a couple questions come in about express entry. So
here we go.
Let's dive into this. What changes have we experienced regarding express entry? As you just said, Anthony, express entry is still issuing invitations to apply, but over the last month, we've seen those invitations restricted to certain programs. Which programs have they been restricted to?
So we've seen two in the last two Canadian Experience class draws only, and I think we had one PMP.
Two PNP draws as well.
Two PMP, two PMP draws.
One was really, really, really small. So.
That's right. That's the one that said no category specified too, which is really confusing. It had a low CRS score of 740 something, and it had no category specified.
Yeah.
So obviously these are the reason why we can only assume that the reason why they're selecting Canadian Experience class and PMP draws at the moment is because the number of people who are eligible for these programs are already in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
So
90% of CEC applicants are residing in Canada, so it's easier for them to manage those applications without having to worry in the future, will these people be able to enter, will they have to quarantine, et cetera, et cetera. So our team, sorry, go ahead.
No, unfortunately, I've seen it come up there a few times. We don't know, again, back to the crystal ball, when they're going to start doing federal skilled worker draws again. We just have to wait and see. But I don't have an update on that. I haven't seen anything.
Mm-hmm. We got this information from, we have a source, trusted legal source who was communicating directly with IRCC in a phone call, asked them about the express entry draws, and IRCC confirmed that they are limiting it to CEC and PNP draws for the time being. This source did actually raise the issue of disadvantaging FSW and FST candidates, and IRCC said they're going to consider the disadvantages that they're creating, but they said there were no plans in the immediate future to return to all program draws. Again, it's impossible for us to predict how these things are going to evolve. It's a rapidly changing situation, so it could change in the near future. But for right,
I'd say there's probably been changes taking place right now, Dane. That's how fast the changes are happening.
Yeah, we'll finish this call and the pandemic will be over. No, it's not. It's not over. Stay in your houses. So those are the big updates for Express Entry. Let's talk a little bit about. Well, I was going to talk about IEC, but I think we've covered most of the IEC.
We'll actually go back a couple of other Express Entry questions. Sorry, just to obviously people about submitting your application.
Mm-hmm.
So IRCC have extended the deadline of submitting now to 90 days. It was at 60. Now we're back to 90 days. You must submit your application. And if you are unable, this is extremely important. If you are unable to provide a document, a mandatory document as part of your Express Entry application, your CEC application, you must provide, you can submit, but you must provide a letter of explanation. Mm-hmm. Okay, why were you not able to get this document? So it's actually on the operational bulletins for the officers. That's the instructions to give to officers. If someone does not provide a letter of explanation, and does not give a valid reason, maybe they give a valid reason that is not even COVID-19 related, they can still cancel the application as incomplete. So it's extremely important that whatever documents missing, say you can't do your medical, or you're not able to get your police certificate, include a letter of explanation in your application in lieu of the document that you should have uploaded in the first place.
Right. And I'm just going to take this moment to plug your services, Anthony. DFI offers one-on-one consultations regarding your immigration application. So if you are submitting a PR application and you want that sort of peace of mind, you're a bit concerned submitting something that's incomplete, again, look in the description of this video. There's a link to DFI's intake form, so you can go ahead and book a consultation with Anthony or with Cassandra Foltz, the other immigration consultant at Doherty Foltz. And it's PR applications are complex outside of global pandemic, so
yeah, I'd agree with that. 100%.
Yeah, it can be worthwhile to have a professional look it over. Great.
Just trying to think of other Express Entry, but I think that's the main talking points. Obviously, there's probably a lot more questions we cover, but I don't. I'll let you take the lead.
Yeah, well, I saw someone ask, are they still processing FSW applications that have already been submitted? So yes, they are still processing applications, PR applications at this time. Again, just expect delays. And IRCC, for those of you who are checking the IRCC website, looking at the processing times they're listing and thinking, it's been more than that for me. They've actually officially stated that their processing times that they list online are not accurate anymore. In the time of COVID, they're...
One of the first things after you electronically submit your PR application via the Express Entry system is within a couple of days you received a biometrics request. Mm-hmm. But at the moment, most of the VACs around the world are closed. So that's for overseas candidates. And then obviously all of the Service Canada centres that you provide biometrics in Canada are currently closed. They cancelled all of the appointments. So just by that alone, not being able to submit your biometrics, that your application is, going to take a longer time.
Yeah, and I just saw Guy just asked about biometrics, and we've also got some questions coming in about medical exams. So what would you do if you have your application deadline coming up and you can't get your medical exam done?
again, like, so from what isn't a couple of people being given appointments for May and June, but yeah, again, like you said, this could be a fluid process where these just kept being cancelled and rescheduled. If you're unable to obviously find a panel physician to undergo your medical within the time frame of the deadline of your application, include a letter of explanation. And going back on that, if you have a supporting document, say for instance, you get an email from the panel physician saying, sorry, we're not doing it this time, you can include that with your letter of explanation as a supporting document. So yes, just a letter of explanation.
Yeah, a letter of explanation is your friend, and a letter of explanation is. Can you describe what that looks like for
Yeah, it's
someone?
just basically, so once when you obviously, after you've filled out all the data in your PR application, the next stage when you hit continue, it gives you all of these upload sections. So upload your employment records, upload your police certificate, your proof of medical. So the system won't let you, obviously, you must upload something in each section for the system to let you carry on to the next stage of submitting. So if, say, we'll stick with the medical. If you're unable to find a panel physician, write a letter of explanation. So what is that? Dear Sir or Miss, due to the coronavirus, I am unable to find a panel physician. I have tried multiple. I've called and emailed multiple panel physicians in my area. Please find an email from, if you did have that email, please find my email attached. I will, as soon as I'm able to book an appointment, I will immediately submit my proof of medical to you via web form. So that's an example of a letter of explanation for a
Right.
proof of medical. Or
Yeah, I think that's a very valuable information for people to know because it's stressful to submit these sort of documents that you're not sure
but you
about.
don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just you just don't know what to do. It's difficult, right?
I do have a couple of questions that have come in that I'm going to address related to Express Entry. Lashante Shea is asking, I'm unable to create a profile because I don't have my ECA or my language test results. Is there any advice on the next steps for me right now? Unfortunately, until you have those two documents, you are not going to be able to create your Express Entry profile. They are mandatory documents. But I will say that you can take actions now in order to improve your immigration chances later on. Let me see. We've got an article that the Moving to Canada editor, Hugo, put together just a couple of days ago that I'll pull up on screen here. So 10 things that you can do now to simplify your move to Canada later on. And it goes through a few things that you can, I know that it's frustrating to not be able to create your profile and take that direct action, but indirectly, if you can't take your language test, you know what you can do? You can study for your language test and make sure that once you do take it, you're going to really improve, have improved skills and maximize your points there. French is another thing. I won't go through all these examples, but head over to the Moving to Canada website for some advice there. It's better than doing nothing right now. And oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's a difficult situation. As I said, you need the ECA and the language results in order to create the profile. You need the code, the reference number, and the PIN number sometimes. So that's a difficult one. All I would say to the people who are in Canada who are unable to submit their profile is maintain your status at all costs. That's the most important thing, is to maintain your status.
Yeah. And for people who aren't familiar necessarily with what that means,
Yeah.
let's give maybe an example. So if you're on let's say you're on a visitor visa and your visitor visa expires at the end of April, on April 30th. What would you do in that case?
Well, yeah. So we'll talk. So when you are gain entry into Canada, when you come through the customs in Canada, usually most of the time, unless the officer said otherwise, you're given 6 months from the entry stamp on your. Unless there's a different departure date, it's the entry 6 months from the entry stamp on your passport. So that means that you have status as a visitor in Canada for the next 180.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, basically 6 months. So before that status expires, before is the key word. You must make an application, extend your stay as a visitor, and that must be submitted online before the expiry date of as I said, the 180th day of your time in Canada. So if you are, sorry, I'll give another example. If you're, this is where it gets a little bit, we'll be getting this question a lot. If you're a worker in Canada, and you must be eligible to extend your stay as a worker. Okay, so all of the eligibility is online. That's where people are having, and it's difficult to understand. You must be eligible to extend your stay as a worker. If you're not eligible to extend your stay as a worker, you have to change your conditions and turn to a visitor.
Right.
And once again, that change of conditions must be submitted before the expiry date of your work permit.
Right. And I'm just going to reiterate that. So if someone is in Canada on a work permit, your work permit is going to expire. People keep asking us, how do I extend my work permit? Well, oftentimes you can't extend. Oftentimes you cannot extend your work permit. You have to be eligible, as you mentioned, Anthony, for one of those extensions, of which there are a handful of situations in which you can. But if you are not eligible, you can apply to extend your stay, but often you have to transition to visitor status.
Yes.
And I've got another question that came in from Jasmine, and I'm going to field this one to you. Jasmine says, I'm a Canadian PR holder stranded in India. How long can I stay outside Canada? Someone told me that staying outside for more than 6 months would affect my PR status. Is that true?
Okay, so they haven't correct me if I'm wrong yet, but like in order to, when you become a permanent resident, you are issued a permanent residency card, and typically, generally, that card is valid for 5 years. So every 5 years, you must renew your permanent residency card. And one of the criteria, or one of the eligibility factors in renewing your PR card, is you must maintain your residency obligation. What is that? Basically, you must demonstrate at the time you make that application that you have been. There's exemptions, but most of the time, physically in Canada for 2 years within the last 5. So there are exceptions if you're living with your common law partner and your spouse who's a Canadian citizen overseas. There's exemptions for that, and there's others exemptions too that we could be here all day, but we don't. In regards to what's going on, 6 months is okay as long as when she applies, she can show 2 years out of the last 5. And yeah,
it's the 2 years, that 2 out of 5 years, that's the important number to remember. 6 months is okay, but it is going to be 2 years, as you mentioned, Anthony, at the time that you submit that application.
From the date you apply, yeah. Exactly.
So 6 months
so
again.
Hopefully this will be over way before we get to that stage.
Oh man.
Oh God, yeah. Sorry.
I can't even think about that. I've already watched Tiger King 18 times.
I'm hearing a lot about this Tiger King. I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, well, it's peak content, peak human content. Sorry, I'm getting a bit away from our questions. So look, we've been getting tons of questions. Here's what I would like to do. I'm going to jump into our Facebook discussion thread because we got about 80 questions there before we started, and we'll try to sort of quick fire some of those questions. Before that, though, I do want to take a chance because Anthony has been so kind to lend his professional guidance in this live stream. We do just want to highlight the services that Anthony and Doherty Foltz Immigration offers. So again, if you head over to the Moving to Canada website, I'm right on the homepage here. You'll see right at the top, I've got a link to the Doherty Foltz immigration consultant page. And so you can take a look here if you want more information about who Anthony is, who his partner Cassandra is. And then you can also take a look at the range of immigration services that they offer. So they offer a ton of services, one-on-one consultations, express entry services. Anthony and Cassandra are both based in Toronto, so they're experts in the Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program, OINP. That's the PNP with the biggest intake every year. I believe 2019 they accepted 7,500.
It's one of the highest because, as I said, it's a prime destination.
Yeah, and it's the biggest. It's Canada's largest or most populous province. Family sponsorship.
Canada's largest province too. Yeah.
Yeah. Study permits, PR application reviews, LMIAs and work permits, PR cards, citizenship cards, COPRs, and CRIM rehab, criminal rehabilitation, which is can be a really complex issue. So if you're being denied immigration status because of a past criminal offense in Canada or outside Canada, CRIM rehab could be a solution, and they can give you a consultation in that regard. So like I said, there's a link in the description of this video that'll take you right to the Doherty Foltz intake form, which I'm pulling up right here. Fill out this form with your personal details to book that one-on-one consultation, and you can speak with Anthony or Cassandra about the complexities of your own immigration situation. So that's my little plug for you, Anthony.
Thank you very much. That was a very good plug. Appreciate it.
Yeah, well, you deserve it. So let's jump into our Facebook discussion thread here. I'm gonna quick fire some of these questions because some of them we've answered already. Andrea asked us, is it possible that the government extends already activated IEC visas? As of right now, we have no indication that the government will extend already activated IEC visas. They have not issued any statement in this regard. It's possible. There's a chance they could announce a policy change in the future, but as of right now, there's no indication of that. We've got Ngozi asking about the CRS score. How is the pandemic of benefit to applicants? I mean, the pandemic is of benefit if you're in the Canadian experience class.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah,
it's and obviously it's lowered the score. It's lowered the score a little bit. I'm not a mathematician. I don't know how, when they start doing the FSW again, how it's going to work, but obviously we've seen the last lower than, as the average was over the last couple of months.
Yeah. For CEC for sure. I mean,
CEC, my apologies.
There's a lot of variables at play here, and so we try to err on the side of caution on making predictions when there are multiple variables to consider. Variables at play here include the fact that they are limiting FSW draws, which is allowing a buildup of FSW candidates in the pool. However, as we had one of our viewers note earlier, people can't complete their language tests or their ECAs right now, so there is going to be a slower number of people entering the pool. That may also be impacting the CRS score. There's just so many.
There'll be a massive influx of profiles once obviously you're able to get your ECA, or so the variables are. We could spend an entire day talking about it.
Yeah. So we've got a question from Misha Patel asking, is office work for the government of Canada counted as key workers? So is that an essential worker position? For people wondering about essential workers, I've actually pulled up this page. This is on the Public Safety Canada website. So it's an official government resource. They've got guidance on essential services and functions in Canada during the COVID-19 pandemic. And in here, they break down what is considered essential work across 10 different sectors. These 10 sectors, you'll see that you can, these are all the positions in health. There's a lot of positions in health. All of these different sectors and breakdowns of what's considered essential work. So if you're looking if you want to know if you're considered essential, if your job is considered essential, check this resource. This will be your best resource to handle there. I will reiterate, we stated before, the essential nature of your travel to Canada is not solely based on that position. It's going to be assessed at the discretion of the Cbsa officer with whom you speak at the port of entry. So just because you have a job offer that you believe is essential does not guarantee your entry to Canada, though it should improve your chances of gaining entry. Gabriel was asking us when FSW draws will resume. Have you gotten a crystal ball in the last 15 minutes?
No, I didn't get one. No.
Yeah. Sorry, Gabriel. Sorry, man. We don't know. We don't know at this point. We're monitoring it. We'll update you if we find any changes. Okay, so this is a question that we've been seeing about IEC insurance. People have been asking us, is it mandatory to get coverage for COVID-19 if you're traveling on IEC? Because for IEC, it is mandatory to show that you have emergency medical coverage for the complete duration of your stay in Canada. So I'm actually going to pull up the government resource on IEC here. They're asking, is healthcare insurance still required to come under IEC? Yes, it is. And they state here, IRCC states, it's up to a participant to ensure that they have adequate coverage, including for COVID-19 testing or illness in light of the current pandemic. Check with your insurance provider. This is, again, from IRCC. Check with your insurance provider to find out if they'll cover COVID-19. And the Cbsa agents are going to check your healthcare coverage at the port of entry. They don't explicitly state here that the Cbsa officer will deny you if you don't have COVID-19 coverage in your health insurance, but these guidelines do lay the groundwork where it appears as though the Cbsa will exercise their discretion on admitting people based on the...
It's also... that if you're traveling to another country, you want to be, there's a high chance you could catch this virus, so you want to be covered in that event. Touch wood, everyone's okay.
Mm-hmm. People have asked us where to get COVID-19 insurance or insurance that covers COVID-19 related claims. The majority of providers are not covering COVID-19 related claims at this time, so you're going to have a challenge finding it. I was not able to conduct a comprehensive investigation of all providers, so you might be able to find someone, but with insurance, it's always really important to read the details of your policy. Check with the provider if it's not mentioned directly. Check in about COVID-19. And with insurance, our golden rule at moving to Canada is if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. If you're finding a cheap insurance policy that says it covers COVID-19, you should probably dig into the details of that a little bit before purchasing. Great. Carolyn has asked about FSW draws for express entry. We've answered that. Okay.
Have we covered 7% of all the changes?
And we just have questions and questions and questions coming in. Okay, I've got a bit of a complicated question here. I don't actually know the answer to this one, so maybe you do, Anthony. The pressure's on. We've got Sarah saying that she's looking to make the move to Canada to be with her boyfriend of 2 years. Congratulations, Sarah. Due to her age and wanting to keep her job, express entry doesn't seem like an option. They are not technically common law or conjugal, so they can't do the spousal route. She's asking, can she do an intra-company transfer to her current employer in Toronto, but live in Newfoundland as a remote employee?
Oh, okay. So there's both to that question. I would need a lot more information to answer that question. Is where you need to work.
Okay.
So I can answer that. When obviously an intracompany transferee is an employer-specific work permit, which means that you must work for that employer in that occupation in that location. But in regards to can she? Obviously, I would need a lot more information.
Yeah, and this is if you do again have hyper-specific personal immigration questions, that's a great time to book a consultation one-on-one with an immigration consultant like Anthony or Cassandra to get that professional advice, because they're going to need more information than we can get from a Facebook post. Monica was asking, is there any prediction as to when people will not have to do the 14-day quarantine? We cannot. we again, as with all of the travel restrictions, we don't know how long they'll be in place. It's responsive in it's responding in terms of how the public health crisis develops. Quarantine plans, we've covered that for you guys. For people who weren't here before, I'll just open up again the BC's self-isolation plan. This is direct from the BC government. So this might give you a good template that you can use of information that you should provide and questions you should cover for your self-isolation plan when you come to the Canadian Port of Entry. Okay, Jim Bilney asked us about entry. I'm going to skip this question because I think we've discussed the situation for entry. I'm going to read through these questions as we go and try to find a couple that we haven't arrived at already.
Well, if you joined us late as well, I believe this video is going to be available.
Yeah.
Yeah,
if you're joining us late and you want to review some of the earlier topics, this video will be published on our Facebook page immediately afterwards, as soon as Facebook processes the video. And then we'll also be uploading a version to the Move Into Canada YouTube channel, which will have a slightly higher quality of video. So if you want to see our gorgeous faces in HD, check that out. It won't be HD, I'm sorry. It'll just be normal D.
I'm actually probably glad that it's not HD.
Okay, we've got Patty. I'm South African with COPR for Canada. I was trying to fly to Canada for my first entry when I was denied. Am I allowed to enter Canada? If not, when? I'm worried that my COPR will expire. So we have addressed this earlier. If your COPR was issued before March 18th, you will be able to travel to Canada. You're exempt from the restrictions. There was a period in there, probably of about 2 weeks, where all of these guidelines were sort of up in the air. So that if you tried to travel within that period of confusion, it's definitely possible you would have been denied. So if your COPR is going to expire, again, Anthony, in that case, people should do what?
You must send a web form. You have to contact IRCC via the web form and that you cannot travel and the reasons why you cannot travel. And as I said, when you're able to do so, you must submit a web form indicating that you're now able to travel to Canada, and then follow the instructions of IRCC.
Yeah, exactly. And I just pulled up the web form for people who are wondering. You can also find it very easily by Googling IRCC web form.
Web form.
Yep. For the PR, the requirement is to apply within 3 years of qualifying. Okay. I'm trying to understand this question. Vanya is asking us, for PR, the requirement is to apply within 3 years of qualifying. How will you activate your... Okay, so all PR requirements for express entry aligned programs, it sounds that she's asking about express entry, all of the requirements for the program stand. They have not announced any changes to, you normally need 12 months of full-time skilled work experience in Canada completed within the last 3 years if you're applying through CEC. That stands. So if you have lost your job, if you're no longer working or something has happened in Canada, you're no longer accumulating that work experience. And Canada has not changed that program requirement. So I think that's maybe what you're
No, it's correct. It's correct. Yeah.
Oh, here's a question. We've been getting some of this coming through about international students. So Eduardo is asking, I'm an international student looking forward to starting my postgraduate in September. Congratulations. I'm waiting for my college to send me a confirmation letter to apply for the visa. Will I encounter problems applying for the visa? Will I be able to go before my period starts? A lot of questions there. A lot of great questions there that I don't think we've answered. So international students, this is for you.
On that note, on the international students, actually, we spoke a lot bit about it. So obviously the key date of that for when your study permit was issued is March 18th, before March 18th. So anyone that would POE letter before March 18th, or who already had a study permit, can still travel to Canada. They're exempt from the restrictions. There's a couple of interesting things, changes about that. Obviously, a lot of the courses where people were attending in person, university, they have switched to online. And a lot of people are worried, would this affect their eligibility for a postgraduate work permit? Because, as I said, online courses did not support that, obviously, in normal times. So, no, it will. If your course has switched to online, it will not affect your eligibility for a postgraduate work permit. Another interesting one too is if your course is due to start in May or June and you're unable to travel, you will be, if your college or university is offering it, you will be able to start the course online with the course, and you're actually allowed to complete 50% of that, as I said, as study in Canada. So that's an interesting, helpful hint there too.
And so for people concerned about the September intake, what you should note here is that Canada is still accepting these types of applications, despite the fact that there are travel restrictions in place. But as you see with the cohort of students who are starting classes in May and June, they have already put in special measures to assist them. They have not yet introduced special measures like allowing people to start their classes online from outside of Canada. For the September cohort of students, but obviously IRCC is making considerations in that regard, and we would expect an announcement about that to come a little bit closer to that start date. Okay. So hopefully that answers your question, Eduardo. So in order to apply for your study permit, you do of course have to have your letter of acceptance from your university, so you'll need that from your college first, and then your question about will you be able to go to Canada before your program starts is going to depend on how this pandemic plays out.
Exactly.
Great. So I think
one other thing, Dane, about the students as well. If you are a student in Canada and obviously you are allowed to work off campus for the 20 hours, if you're currently working in an essential service, the 20-hour cap has been removed. Only if you're working in an essential service, you are allowed to work more than 20 hours per week.
Yeah, I saw that came through yesterday. I think IRCC pushed that out, which is great for
essential service, though. That's the key word, I believe.
Yeah. Okay. I'm reading through these questions, and I think that we have answered the bulk of them. Desti asked us, "Can I take the IELTS exam now?" You'll have to find a test center that's open. The vast majority of them around the world are closed, so you might just have to sit tight and wait for that. Yeah, most of these are about traveling into Canada, and I think we've addressed most of those considerations. So, look, I think we're past an hour now, so I think that that we are going to wrap this up in the next couple of minutes. Oh, Heidi was asking, and I saw a couple of questions about this, about the caregiver program. So Canada launched, I think it was about a year ago, 2 new caregiver pilot programs, the home child care worker and home support worker pilots,
Support worker, yeah, yeah.
which replaced a confusing mess of other pilot programs, interim programs, and otherwise for caregivers. Um, so the caregiver pilot programs are still accepting and processing applications. The way these new pilots work is they actually have a two-part application. You can use the pilot to apply for a work permit to travel to Canada as a caregiver and undertake employment in that role. And then B, once you accumulate enough work experience as a caregiver, you can then apply for permanent resident status. So of course the pilots are still accepting applications across both of those situations. It's highly likely that the work permits will be processed at a higher rate, faster rate than the actual PR applications, as a lot of caregivers are necessary in this moment in time. But people have been asking us about processing times for these, and we just don't know the exact processing times. IRCC has stated that the processing times on their website are all out of date as well, so it's just a little bit. It would be a little bit disingenuous for us to try to tell you how long that's going to take to be processed. Great. Do you have anything else that you feel like we haven't covered here, Anthony?
Yes and no. As I said, there's obviously a lot more we could cover with the place in the last month. I'm just trying to think of it. As I said, like the most important thing I can say that I said in the last hour is maintaining status at all costs. That's what you must do. If you're currently in Canada, maintain your status.
Yeah.
And again, just importantly, if you're unable to come to Canada and whatever document you have is expiring, contact IRCC via the web form and inform them of the reasons why you cannot travel.
Yeah, that's really great advice. I'm seeing, as I've announced, that we're ending. A couple people are asking us about PNPs. Are PNPs still running? PNPs are organized at the provincial level, so there's not like a blanket decision on how to manage those. Some provinces, for example, PEI, have suspended some of their anticipated draws, while other provinces are continuing to conduct draws. This week alone, we saw invitations issued by BC, Alberta, and I think we saw a Manitoba draw yesterday as well. So PNPs are definitely still operating in certain provinces, but you'll have to. I'm gonna briefly plug the.
I'm going to say
tracker.
one other thing. Dan, sorry, one other thing as well that I did cover. If for some reason your status has expired, okay, within the last 90 days, you must restore your status.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's also is equally important. So if you're a visitor and you've, as I said, it's gone beyond the expiry date of your status, restore your status to a visitor. Or if you're a worker and you're eligible to restore, you've lost your status and you're eligible to restore to a worker, keyword eligible, you should, as I said, restore your status to a visitor. Okay, right. So restoration is just as important as maintaining your status. I forgot to mention that.
Yeah, that's really good advice. If you fall out of status while you're in Canada and you don't restore, it really can jeopardize future immigration applications. So that's really important to note. And I've just pulled up for our viewers the PNP live tracker on the Moving to Canada website. So if you want updates on what PNPs are operational, you can check that out here. I've just highlighted the draws this week alone. We've seen draws from BC, Alberta, Ontario, and Manitoba. So check this out if you want to get the most recent updates on PNPs. Look, so we've still got a lot of viewers. We still are seeing questions come in. We really hope that we've answered some of the questions that you guys have. It's difficult to go through all of your questions, so we appreciate your patience in that regard. If you are tuning in and you weren't here for the start of the video, this will be posted on our YouTube channel later, and it will also appear on our Facebook feed, the Moving to Canada Facebook feed, immediately after we end the live video. Just to reiterate, we have been joined today by the wonderful Anthony Doherty of Doherty Foltz Immigration. He is a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. He works alongside Cassandra Foltz, another regulated Canadian immigration consultant. They are both excellent, amazing at what they do, as you can probably tell from the guidance that he's been able to provide today. I'm going to give one final plug to the link in the description of this video where you can complete an intake form to book a consultation with Doherty Foltz. And actually, I've got a question for you, Anthony, about your consultations. Your website states that the consultation fees will be deducted from the professional fees if you continue within 10 days of the consultation. Is that
Yeah, usually, yes. When someone retains our services after a consultation, we within the 10 days we take off the consultation fee. Correct.
Okay. And I think this person is asking if there's any possibility for an extension due to COVID. I guess that's maybe a case by case discussion with people.
Yeah, every case is on its own merit, essentially.
Okay. Great. Perfect. So, look, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. This has been it's been great to chat with you, Anthony, and I hope we've gotten some good information out to people. Hopefully, we'll be able to do this again, maybe in person someday, years from now, when we're allowed outside.
Yeah, no, this has been good. Obviously, thanks for having me, number one. And thanks to everyone that joined us today and all the questions. Again, I apologize if we didn't get through all of the questions. And yeah, I hope everyone stays safe.
Yeah. Stay safe, stay healthy, take care of your families, do what you need to get through this. And we will, of course, bring you any more updates on the Moving to Canada website if and when they become available. Thanks so much, everyone. We will see you next time.
Take care.